Coming up in this episode.
Really, really bad luck this past year in terms of health. And who covered for me? My co-founder. And she understands. She's not going to tell me, oh, well, fucking hell, you have been sick the third time this year. No, she's going to understand because she knows me.
As human beings, we need to actually have multiple purposes in order to feel satisfied, emotionally and physically and mentally and so on. Yeah. And that's, through relationships, like you said, whether that's romantic relationships, friendship circles, responsibilities as a parent or a partner, or a husband or a wife. And then, professional, responsibilities too.
At the beginning, I wanted to talk to founders that were already fundraised and that had more experience than me. And I've seen so many of them that didn't answer or were a bit rude or didn't even acknowledge my message. And I want to do the contrary of that. I feel like I will be learning from somebody at any point, even if they have less experience than me in X things like fundraising. I still think I can get something out of that conversation. So I think founders should speak to founders.
The Founders Unplugged podcast, hosted by Greg McCallum. Raw, unedited conversations with entrepreneurs and startup founders.
Hey Greg, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
All good, all good.
Good to see you again. How's things?
Good to see you as well. Everything went really well. I'm back in London after 1 month in Spain and
beautiful.
Ready for September.
You're brilliant. How was Spain? Tell me about that.
Oh, it was very hot. So literally spending all day at home because I actually worked, but at least I had the beach in front, so that was really nice. But very hot. AC always on.
Yeah. Whereabouts in Spain were you?
Next to Valencia.
Next to where, sorry?
Valencia.
Oh, lovely. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Well, I'm very
How was
jealous.
your summer?
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, everyone in the UK, you probably found out already, everyone in the UK is saying it was kind of hit and miss. Now seems to be the best part of it right now, which is really weird. As we're heading
it's really weird.
towards... but hey, I'm going to take it. I'm calling it limited edition right now. You know what I mean? So
yes,
let's
exactly.
Make the most of it.
100%.
Whenever I can, I'm going to sit in the garden and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it sounds like Spain would have been probably a better choice for all of us in the last month.
Yes, although it was way too hot. From 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. you couldn't leave the house. You were melting.
Oh, really? They had fire problems with wildfires as well in Spain, didn't they?
So I had a wildfire. First time I see a wildfire in real life next to my house, 20 minutes away. And literally the flames were huge, but they managed to control it in 24 hours, which is good enough.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I can't imagine what that must have been like seeing that. That must have been a very surreal thing to see.
Yeah, because in the moment you're just okay, because my friend was driving and we were looking at it and we're like, what's happening? It's crazy. And it feels literally surreal. It feels like you're in a movie.
Yeah. Well, at least they managed to get it under control. That's good. Well, look, thank you so much for jumping on. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I promise, I hope that this will be an enjoyable next couple of hours for you.
I'm sure.
So there is a little bit of structure to this show, not much. And what it is really at the beginning, what I like to do is just hand over the sort of mic, as it were, to my guest and just let them introduce themselves, tell us a bit, tell anyone listening about a bit about yourself and a bit about the business, and then I'm probably going to have a few questions to ask you to find out a bit more about you and what you do and stuff, if that's okay. So go ahead, take it away.
Perfect. So I'm Irina, CEO and co-founder of ZIM. I founded ZIM alongside my co-founder Julia 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. Time passes by very, very fast. And it was because we traveled to the Philippines in 2019. We discovered this issue of connectivity that we were having. Once we arrived at our travel destination, we had to buy a local SIM card or pay extremely expensive roaming fees. At the time we were students, so definitely had no money for roaming fees. And also we queued to buy a SIM card locally, and it didn't work because we were at a very, very remote part of the island. And that was really frustrating. And then we discovered eSIM technology, which was already developed by Apple, integrated into many devices. And we were like, why is this not used by users everywhere in the world while they're traveling? So we actually decided to create a solution for our own personal issues, and then it became a business.
Brilliant. And I see that you're currently crowdfunding on Seedrs as well.
So we actually ended that a couple of days ago, and we need to remove that from the website. We successfully raised from Seedrs. We achieved 105% of our goals. So that was really, really nice.
Amazing. Congratulations.
And we have new investors that are going to be affiliates of ZIM that believe in the product, and they'll talk to their friends about it, to the network. So that was kind of the goal of the campaign.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, congratulations on the successful raise. That's always good to hear.
Thank you.
So have you, that's it now? Are you done with fundraising for a little while? So you're going to focus on other things, or are you still looking at angels and stuff, or what's the situation there?
So that the answer to the question is going to be yes and no. So we are fundraising. Okay. Yes, I think we're always fundraising, and we're always talking to different investors for different opportunities. Maybe not for the current moment, but in the future, we'll definitely need to fundraise again. So yes, we're fundraising, but no, I'm not going to spend as much time as I did in the past months to fundraise. I am actually going to dedicate my time to grow the business and increase revenues and focus on ZIM as a business, not only on the cash flows.
That's the ideal answer, because I think that's something that a lot of new CEOs especially don't realize, is you are always technically fundraising. Like you've got to always have your ear to the ground, always find those new relationship opportunities and things like that, because it will come around again quickly. 18-month runway, for example, is like the typical sort of starting runway. That isn't a very long time. Like that goes quick, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh shit, next month I've got to start raising again. So it's a very good mindset to have, that while it's on the to-do list, it's just changing levels of priority, right? Because everything is a priority at the beginning.
Everything, 100%, 100%, completely right. But yes, fundraising always takes a bit more time than usual for founders. That's what I like fundraising. I'm one of the founders that you asked me, like, what is your favorite part of being a founder? It's not going to be fundraising, but I do like it. I like to talk to investors. I think I get a lot of growth from my chats with them, and everybody has something to show me, and I like to learn from them and their experiences. So fundraising is not always about raising money. It's also about meeting new customers, or maybe they have a portfolio company that might be interesting for our B2B channel. So I always tend to get something out of it in the end.
Yeah, it's never wrong to speak to people, basically, right? That's exactly the lesson that I've learned over the years. And you just never know what might come from it. I remember speaking with Ewan of Barback, the CEO of Barback, and he said something on the podcast which was really interesting. When I asked at the end, like, what tips you would give to founders, which I will be asking you later as well. One of the things he said is to give everyone their 5 minutes, which I thought was a really interesting take. Like, he said that the reason why he suggests that is because in his in his career, he's come across some of the best investors and best deals have been like just meeting people on the train or like in a bar, and like, just giving people 5 minutes of his time has opened up huge opportunities. I think that's a really good piece of advice, and I think it's good in life, whether you're a CEO or not. Just give everyone 5 minutes of your time. Like, if someone's, just like strikes up a conversation with you, just don't be like, yeah, okay, mate, yeah, cheers. Like, just be like, yeah, man, how about you? How are you? How's your day? Why not? What's the worst that can happen? Exactly.
I do completely agree with that. I feel like once you're you actually become an early stage founder, you feel like at the beginning, I wanted to talk to founders that were already fundraised and that had more experience than me. And I've seen so many of them that didn't answer, or were a bit rude, or didn't even like acknowledge my message. And I want to do the contrary of that. I feel like I will be learning from somebody at any point, even if they have less experience than me in X things like fundraising. I still think I can get something out of that conversation. So I think founders should speak to founders.
Oh, 100%.
All the time.
Yeah. It seems to be that you're right there. There seems to be like there's this weird class system in founders that isn't talked about, which is based depending on the level of your funding. So like if suddenly you've become funded, then now you're in an elite group of founders that are funded that just stick together. And it's like, screw you guys, I'm no longer one of you, I'm now one of them. Like, I'm welcome to the club, you know. And then even within that, there's different levels. There's like levels of how much you've been funded, like, you know, what stage your company's in. And then of course there's that big one, going public, and they don't, well, actually, funnily enough, it seems to be the opposite. It seems to be like by the time they get to that stage, they realized all of that was bullshit, and they're just happy to share. Like, and they're like, what did I waste my energy being a dickhead for? I could have just spoken to anyone. Like, you know.
Exactly, 100%, 100%. I've seen that. I've actually felt that. So yeah, it's of course, when you look at the class system in startups, is VCs on top, which I don't understand, because it should be the other way around. Because we startups actually give VCs a job, because without startups there wouldn't be any VCs. And then of course the class of startups, which I think it's bullshit, because what happens in startups is we all want to have non-hierarchical teams and be super flat organizations. And then when we look at each other and we talk to each other, it feels like there's always these classes. But I mean, it is the startup world and we are in it, and let's try and change that.
Yeah, and it's also, I suppose, maybe some of it comes down to this idea that the way that you need to work as a founder or a CEO changes quite significantly depending on the stage of your company, right? Like, I think we even talked about this before, about how, you know, once there's more stakes, well, your role changes quite significantly, and you have to communicate to your team about that. Yeah, we definitely spoke about this, I think, didn't we? About how you know, suddenly you now need to you need to set up boundaries with your team. Like, whereas before you could be available for everyone and everything, a quite close-knit team, you ideally want to keep that, but in realistic terms, you can't. You now have, you know, a huge amount of pressure. You've got a lot of responsibilities financially to a lot of different people who are expecting results, and they rely on you too, your team. So you need to start setting up boundaries of communication, you know, actually asking for certain topics or for certain subjects for that to go through your management team, and to only pick up on things that, you know, that are priority. And it's difficult because you don't want to upset people, but it's difficult. And I suppose that works outwardly as well to other founders, you know, that it's like, look, man, I would love to sit down and give you some founder advice, but if I said that to every founder that came to me, I wouldn't be able to actually just do my job, which is very demanding, you know. So I guess it swings and roundabouts, right? I kind of understand it, and I kind of don't. But having said that, I've reached out to some very well-respected, very successful founders who are clearly very, very busy individuals, and I've said, hey, would you mind if I pick your brain for 5 minutes? And they're like, yeah, have half an hour. So, like, you know, it depends.
It depends on their mindset as well. But it's true. But I remember, we spoke about this, and the balance that I used to have at the beginning and what I'm doing now is completely different. And it is like, everybody talks about like teenage years and how you change, but nobody talks when you're a founder or when you're, your 20s and you start working, how big of a change that is. So I think we should start talking about how big a change is when you raise money from pre-seed until Series A, like how your job changes completely, and nobody talks about it. Nobody gives you a little warning, like, hey, your job at the beginning is to be super creative, innovation, everything comes around just creating new products. Now my job is just to look at Excel files, account management, investor relationships. I feel like I'm in meetings all day long. So that is a huge change that some people maybe do not want this in their lives. Maybe they want to keep it always at pre-seed stage, which is impossible, because if you're building a business, you cannot stay at pre-seed stage all of your business life. But it's definitely, for me, it was a struggle. It was seeing my job change and my priorities change, and I missed those early days where I could create and be part of the innovation process. But yeah, I feel like which should be more spoken about.
Yeah, 100%. But nostalgia is a dangerous thing, right? And
Yes.
you know, it's the times were always better before, and it's, you know, like we spoke about before. I think what's missing is this idea of preparing your team. But you know, like you said, if the founders aren't even aware that these changes are coming, it's very difficult to prepare your team. But you have to be, I think, all very transparent about it. Like, guys, things are going to, you know, these are the good times. Let's enjoy them, but let's be serious about this. This will change. Like, and you need to be ready for that, and you know, preparing everyone for it so it's not a culture shock. But I think one of the biggest lies in the startup ecosystem is this this lie about the fact that the vast majority of startups fail. That's not true. The harsh reality is the vast majority of startup founders give up. That's actually what happens, because you know what you've just described there is a huge culture shock, and it's a huge shock professionally. And you know, you can go into it, fall in love with the buzz, and then it's ripped away from you, and then suddenly you've got an office job, and you're like, I didn't sign up for this shit. Like, you know, and I've got bosses now. Like, you know, I've got like these 5, 10, 20, 30 bosses that I owe millions of pounds to, and I have to answer to. Like, what the fuck is this? And of course, the pressure is a lot. And sometimes it's people who have never held an actual job of responsibility before. You know what I mean? And it's like, right, exactly. So like sometimes it's people who've never even had management positions before. You know, quite often.
I've never had. My co-founder never had a job before this.
Wow. Yeah.
So
there you go.
Her first job in her life is her being a manager. So imagine how many shocks we had. I think, but that actually I think plays a bit to our advantage, because
it could, it could be a strength too, because it could mean that you're not bringing bad habits to things or expectations equally. Yeah.
We're just learning from others that are doing really great stuff. But at the same time, I think we are a bit more relaxed. So when something bad happens, when we are stressed, we just take everything with a pinch of humor. I think that was the best things in the beginning. Like, we call each other and we laugh about it. We're like, who would have said that 2 years ago we would have this problem now? And I think humor, it's really, really important. And when I see, of course, it's hard. It's a hard job to have. Every day it's hard, and you don't know what to expect for next day. And I'm a very OCD person, so I do like organization. I need to organize my days by the minute. That I bring that home as well. I organize my house by the minute as well. So me being in a startup, it's actually shocking, because every day is different, and you cannot really organize your weeks or your months by the minute. So that was a huge shock for me at the beginning. So taking this with a pinch of humor was key for me, not going crazy and saying, I dropped this, I don't want this anymore. I've never said it, and hopefully I hope I never will. And my co-founder is the same. I've never heard her say, what if we drop this? Never, ever, ever. Because we are in it, and we know people depend on us, investors depend on us, and now we are inside. We need to see it through.
Yeah, 100%. Don't take yourself too seriously. I think that's a good response to that. Sometimes just try and enjoy it and remember why you're doing it. Like, and
exactly.
And quite often you can forget. And for the same reason why people, I think, get disillusioned with their jobs in general. It's like they've forgotten the purpose of why they're there, which is to make money. Quite often, like, you know, and so they focus on different things, like the drama of the office, or the fact that they didn't get that promotion, or the fact that so and so is getting paid more than them, even though they think they do less. And it's like, dude, just go in, make your money, go home. It's like, you know, you've got a good job, you know, be happy. Perspective is, you know, there are other people out there who would kill for your job. Like, you know, there's sometimes a bit of perspective that needs to be had in situations. And not taking yourself too seriously is, I think, a good start to that. I definitely don't take myself too seriously.
It's great.
No one else takes me seriously either, though. That's the only problem.
But, I'm sure that's not true, but
the good thing is true. I don't give a shit.
Exactly. Also take things less to the heart. I think I used to be, everything used to be super personal at the beginning. Right. Literally every part of the business, the investor saying no, I felt it personally. The app not running well, I felt it personally. Customers complaining, it was personal. Now I'm like, okay, my life is not my company. I do love what I'm doing, and I love what we are achieving, but if something is not going well, I'm not gonna physically put all my body and my sweat into it. Let's figure it out. We're a team. We can do things really well. We will figure it out, but not take things personal, because it's never personal at this stage.
No.
It's about the company and how it's going and taking the right decisions. And I think that's really, really important to realize once you're a founder and you have a really bad moment. It's like, it's not personal. And my co-founder actually...
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Your co-founder.
My co-founder actually laughs, and she's like, what if we have a real job, or not a real job, because this is a job as well, but like a 9-to-6 job, what would happen? I was like, I think we would be really unhappy.
Yeah. It's funny because that's one of the most common things I've found with people who have ended up exiting their company. They usually have exited actually a little earlier than they were expecting because the business, goes Series A, Series B, whatever, and they find that basically they're doing a 9-to-5, and they're just like, this is fucking boring. What am I doing? And they've got such a great team. Everything's running really well. It's well funded. Like, the business is making money. It's like, well, I don't have anything to fucking do now. Like,
exactly, it's not challenging.
I've spoken to CEOs who are literally just like, I literally don't do anything all day. I don't know why I'm here. Like,
I have heard about that.
Yeah.
And another founder I spoke to from Spain, he sold his company a couple of years ago for a quite good quantity of money. So quite successful exit. And he was like, they kept me there for not doing anything. I wasn't doing anything. I was just there to be there. Like, I could go home and nobody would realize.
Yeah, go to board meetings every now and then.
Exactly.
Write a couple of emails. That's it. Like, just sign some
bullshit.
stuff. Yeah.
I don't want that. I want to be part of what's going on. And
I don't know. It sounds quite good to me.
Depends on the day.
I'm getting older, man. Like, it sounds good to me. Like, by 45, something like that, if I had a job like that, I'd be pretty happy. But I have a theory that's why quite often when you hear about new CEOs coming in, so like, especially when the original CEO exits and then another CEO comes in, usually externally, you hear about them fucking everything up. I have a theory. This is because they come in, they realize there's nothing to do, and they feel like they need to find something to do. So they dismantle everything, right? It's just like, well, let's just see what happens if I pull this apart. Like, you know what I mean? And they do that, and then it all goes wrong. And then they can go, oh, well, this needs fixing now. I've got something to do. And then they go ahead and they fix it. It's this idea
I like
that they need
theory.
Yeah, it's you see it a lot.
You definitely see a lot of like really, really bad stories about new people coming into a business. And yes, that could be one theory that is actually right.
Yeah, well, I've seen it firsthand, especially doing change management consultancy work. A lot of companies I've gone into have been very dubious about hiring another consultant because they've been burnt in the past. And one of the main reasons seems to be because they go in and they actively, and I've even been told this by some consultants, they actively go in to dismantle things and disrupt things so that they have a reason for being there. Because quite often they'll go in and everything is working fairly well, and it's really just a case of fine tuning. And in my career, I've gone into organizations who've wanted to make things leaner or improve certain outcomes, and quite often things are going really well. And I'm like, to be honest, you don't really need me. Like, here's a little, some little things I observed, maybe to watch out for, but really, you don't need me, and I'm missing out on a huge payday. But it's like, whereas other consultants would go in and just be like, let's fucking rip this apart and see what happens, kind of thing. You hear about it all the time, and they want to have the continuous contract too. So they never actually want to fix the problem. It's got to always be a problem. It's like speaking to a cowboy mechanic. They're always going to find something wrong with your car. It's
that's 100% true.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to the doctor, there's always like some vitamin missing, but you're feeling totally fine. But then they find like these little things that you need to go to the pharmacy, buy the little drug or vitamin or whatever, and take it for 1 year, and then go back to the doctor, and it's a never-ending cycle.
Well, it's a situational bias, isn't it? Because of the situation is you've been asked to find something wrong. So because of that, you're going to find something wrong. It's like my wife, before she went on maternity leave, works in the NHS with young children. And, she talks a lot about the diagnosis of things like ADHD and things like that. And again, it's like one of those things that, well, it's because so many parents are going to the specialists whose job it is to diagnose people with ADHD. Well, they're going to find it because their literal scenario is, I think my son has ADHD. Your job is to detect ADHD. Well, guess what they find? ADHD, like, because you're looking at it, everything through the perspective of every behavior is linked to ADHD. It's a situational bias. So it's a similar kind of thing, isn't it? If you're going to look for a problem, you'll always find one.
Exactly, but that happens with startups as well. I get harassed and I get messaged every day by people who are like, your website is not nice, your Instagram lacks, and we can help you, which is really nice, and I'm sure they could, but maybe at this stage this is not my priority, or I don't have the budget for it. So it's true that I wish I could answer to every email, but at the one point I just can't.
Yeah,
so
and a lot of these are spam bullshit emails. They're like, I get them all the time too. It's like, we can see how to improve your website. It's okay, but it could be better. And it's like, fuck off. That's not a good way to start a relationship. Like, what are you talking?
Exactly,
like,
you're insulting me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, it may not be perfect. Nothing's perfect, but that's not a good way to start an interaction. Like, I have never done that in my career. Like, of going to a business and being like, hey, I like your business, but it's a bit shit. Maybe you need to hire me. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, that's not.
Nobody will hire you at the end, because exactly.
No.
What if I'm not looking for what you're asking? Like, every person has different priorities.
Exactly. I used to do my first ever consulting gigs were in hospitality and catering. So I used to do a lot of work in restaurants, right? And it was a little different there. You had to get work at some point. A lot of my work was through word of mouth, but eventually I started doing independent restaurant reviews. So I would go to a restaurant, I would eat in the restaurant and experience it. And then I would write a sort of report based on what I saw. But it was mostly positive, like, because I learned very early on. I did try doing the sort of like, this person didn't do that very well. There's clearly a need for training here, I tried that approach of just saying everything I saw that was bad and then saying, you should hire me and I can fix it. It never worked, because obviously people's defenses automatically go up. You're insulting them. You're telling them they're doing a bad job. So I changed it, and 90% of the stuff I reviewed was positive, with just a couple of things that I noticed, even if it wasn't the case, and I saw a lot worse. And I was like, I could help with these things, and these things are really important because they link to these things, which links to more money. And so you have to paint the picture and also just put it on a what's the word, a palatable plate. Otherwise, it's just people are going to spit it out, right? To end the food.
Exactly.
Exactly.
People don't like for you to tell them that what they're doing is wrong. And I think that will be the case. That was the case 100 years ago, and that will be the case 100 years from now. So I think everybody, even if I said before, don't take things personal, it always feels a bit personal, even if you don't want it to feel personal. So I completely agree. You cannot.
That comes with experience too. It comes with experience, and so with that, actually, that's an interesting thing. So you were saying about how neither you or your co-founder have had that sort of experience, and it could be an advantage, could be a disadvantage. But where do you see it's been a disadvantage? Like, have you had to learn some pretty expensive lessons, do you think, as a result of that, or?
Yes, we did mistakes. We of course we have done mistakes in the past, mostly at the beginning. Because we were a blank piece of paper in terms of startup world, in terms of investment. We had no network. Both of us, we met each other in Brussels around 15 years ago, and our parents were both expats in the public sector. So very, 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 very different backgrounds from what we are doing now, working in private sector with our own company. So entrepreneurship was kind of never an option for us until we actually got the idea for ZIM, and we entered a whole new world. It was literally like opening a whole new planet for us. So yes, we did mistakes. Mostly at the beginning with investors. We didn't know how to talk to investors. We didn't know how to communicate our idea. we had to go through an acceleration program, and then of course also an incubation program to learn those skills that we lacked, and also the network. Because even if you work for 2-3 years, you kind of have people around you that will know other people that will be able to help with your business. We didn't have that. All of our friends and network, they were the same age as us, with the same experience as us. And our parents didn't have connections in the private sector. So that was definitely a challenge. Like, how do we build this network? How do we approach people? And I think we had to learn a lot about that and how to manage those relationships, because it's easy to contact people on LinkedIn, but how do you keep those relationships open and going? And it requires a lot of effort. Mistakes we did, yes. Of course, management mistakes as well, how to manage the team, how to be able to create a nice culture. We had to learn from those mistakes, and it's good that we did them, because we wouldn't be here if we haven't. But definitely now, if we would start again, what we did in 1 year, we could do in 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, this is essentially why I have a job. Is to help people, like, to solve those problems before they occur. Which has always been a bit of a catch-22, because if you make them help people avoid mistakes, they wonder, were there any mistakes to begin with?
Exactly.
So, no, that's super interesting. So how did you said you and your co-founder met in Brussels. So what were the circumstances surrounding that? What were you both doing at the time? Were you both studying? Were you what was the situation?
We were actually in high school. So she actually was born in Brussels. So her parents were expats there, and then my parents moved from Spain to Brussels as well, and we went to the same school. So we went to European school, very, very international. I think that was a really, really great experience, because I don't know if you've heard about European schools, but it's kind of, everybody has everybody from Europe has their own section, like German, Dutch, English. I was in the Spanish section, and everybody kind of ends mixing up. So you learn so much about different cultures. You become super open-minded, and that helped a lot with the business as well, to understand why people were acting different than us in the business world. And we understand kind of, hey, yes, different cultures, different ways of doing business. And that got us to some really, really great places.
Yeah, understanding different people is a huge advantage. I've been very fortunate in my life that as a kid growing up, I grew up in Oxford, which is an international hub, and for students especially. And in our house, we were very fortunate when I was younger, but before my parents divorced, we lived in quite a large house with lots of different rooms. And we always had at least 3 or 4 foreign students in our house.
Oh, nice.
As lodgers. So, who were attending one of the local international schools of English. And so growing up,
amazing.
The dinner table was always full of people from all around the world, different skin colors, different religious backgrounds, different cultures. And, they would help, they would cook sometimes. So we would get different food from all around the world. I'm so fortunate that is my
That's
experience.
Amazing.
Okay. Yeah. And now
that is really, really fortunate, as you say.
Yeah, it really is. Like I felt like I was basically growing up in an international school, basically, and I'm so fortunate for that. And then the fact that my mother's French, my dad's Irish, so English people were. I was a bit confused as to what just a normal English person was for a very long time.
I love that.
Yeah, but it was the best thing. And so right now, similar to you put me in a room. It doesn't matter where people are from.
Exactly.
It's just fascinating. I'm interested in everyone and their story, which is why I do this. I think that's tied together. This is my favorite thing that I do, because it's just talking to people, which is what I grew up doing, and engaging and exchanging ideas and disagreeing with people and respectfully, and all that kind of stuff. Like it's So I think that's incredible that you had that experience too. It's incredibly valuable and a huge skill that I think is massively underappreciated as well.
Yes.
Because now your investors know they can put you anywhere.
Exactly.
You're going to become best friends with people, and that's really important.
If you are enjoying this episode, please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Exactly. And also in terms of the team that we are building. So We are a startup in a market that is, we are using a very innovative technology. There's no like experts in eSIM right now in the market that have been working on it for 25 years because the technology is new.
Right.
So the good thing about that, so there's good and bad. The good thing about it is that we can hire very junior people. Maybe they don't even have to have studies. They just need to be completely motivated to learn a new skills and also to grow a company, have that startup mindset. And I think that was really, really important for us since the beginning. It's like, maybe you don't have all the skills needed now, but we're sure you're going to have all the skills needed in 6 months. So come with us, join our journey, and we will all learn together. And that's what I love most about my team, is how diverse we are, how different we are from each other, and how we can kind of complement each other. Of course, the bad thing about being in such a new using such a new technology is that we don't have we always have to fail to learn. So we need to make errors, which takes a bit more time, but we definitely are getting there.
That's good. And I suppose it also directly ties into your customer base, right? The people that you're actually trying to serve, which are international individuals, people around the world, and trying to solve an international problem. So, which is interesting too, because that's not typically a model that, startups go for, right? You typically look for solving the problem in one particular geography and having your product used in one particular geography before looking at others. Whereas for yours, that just doesn't make sense. That's not part of it, right? So how do you address that in kind of, not only the business model and sort of the go-to-market approach, but also even just communicating that to investors to make sure that they don't get too scared by it?
So at the beginning, in order to not get investors scared, we were like, we're going to open up the app in the UK, in Spain, and in the US. That's it. We're going to only have eSIM plans in those 3 destinations. And then we talked to an individual that is now part of a fund that invested in us. He's very young. He has his own company, very, very successful guy. And we talked to him in a very informal moment. We were having drinks with the fund, and he was like, if you go international, that's what's going to make you successful. And we're like, what? That's not going to scare you all? And he was like, no, go international. Launch the app. Because we already have the capabilities to launch the app in over 120 destinations. Right. And we were just afraid of how the market was going to react to that. And he was like, with one phrase of somebody that knows the market and kind of understands what we are doing, we were like, okay, so our idea to launch globally was actually a good idea. We were just trying to make it work for investors.
Yeah, that's when we realized, for them,
exactly, stop making things work for investors. Make things work for yourself, because you are the one that builds the company. It's your gut feeling that they invested in. Follow that. So we decided to launch the app into 120 destinations since day one. And that helped us because we could reach more communities. We could reach digital nomad communities, international students that are traveling abroad. And we do have destinations that nobody purchases in from. But we still have that peace of mind from the consumer that if they come to us, they will find anywhere where they're going, they will find an eSIM plan. Even if it's the most remote places on earth. So that's how we kind of put it in terms of go-to-market. We do still target UK, Spain, and US as our marketing efforts.
Of course, yeah.
But we do use digital nomad communities and international students and literally people that are traveling nonstop as a way of word of mouth. And we do have clients coming from Latin America. We do have clients coming from Asia. So yeah, it was a hard decision to make, but it was obvious because we had the capabilities. Why not use all the resources that we had?
Yeah. Did they give you more money as a result of that as well? They say we can go international, but we need more money. No, bastards. No, well,
yes.
Never mind. They're gonna have to next time, though, right?
Exactly. No, but I mean, it was a good decision, and we're very happy with it. And I wouldn't do it the other way.
Yeah, and it makes complete sense because, like you said, now your users are can be reassured that they can use your platform not just in one location or a very limited amount of locations. They can travel and they always have access to it, which is basically the point, right? That you're solving that problem for them. So that's
and
good.
Also, when you think about it, churn. Imagine you, Greg, you're traveling to the US tomorrow, and if we only had US, UK, and Spain, you would download the app, but then you would automatically delete it after you end up your trip, which now, if they know that we have so many destinations, they will think, oh, I'm going to Thailand in 6 months. Right. Let's leave the app there on the background and I'll come back to it. So yes, it improves business as well and sales.
Yeah, because even if the intention is to come back to it, when you have that country launched, I mean, in terms of your data set, it's still going to be considered a churn, right?
Exactly.
So it's just, it skews that data set pretty badly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, great decision, and I'm glad to hear about it. Did you find that that things become a lot easier with pitching to investors since we met as well, because of the advice I gave you outside of that venue?
I love the advice you gave me, and it was really good advice, because we have two options, right, to pitch to investors. We have the VCs that are very number focused, so I think I'm pretty good at that because I'm more analytical. And then we have the angels, where my co-founder, she likes that emotional side of pitching, and I love how she pitches to angel investors. I feel like she connects with the audience really, really well. But the advice you gave me is that it was true. There were not many VCs in that room. There were mostly angels. So I needed to kind of say what was happening, but also add an emotional touch. But definitely that helped a lot.
It's just good selling techniques, essentially. For anyone listening who doesn't know what we're talking about, I'll just give it a bit of brief context. We met in front of the venue of a networking event a few months ago, and I was vaping, and you and your co-founder were practicing your pitch before you went on stage, and I just simply gave a bit of advice about sort of narrative, adding a narrative to it, tell a story leading up to why you decided to create the company, and just double down on that a bit. And the reason why I suggest that is I actually suggest it for any kind of sales interaction, of which it is basically, right? It's a pitch. So because of people love a story. Right, that's how we connect with individuals. I remember reading a very famous book by Terry Pratchett that talked about how the Homo sapiens should have actually been called Pan Naran, which is Latin for storytelling ape, because because essentially that is what we are as creatures. We have evolved by telling stories with one another, passing on information, and that's how we do it. You're more likely to remember something if it's in story format than if it's just cold, dead data.
Bullet points.
Yeah, exactly. So, I even suggest to people to do it in front of investors too, if it feels like the right moment, because sometimes, you can get into situations where it can be refreshing for them, right? Yeah. Because they're so used to PowerPoints and, and Excel spreadsheets that just actually starting it with a bit more of that story can be engaging. And then you can get into all that stuff that they need. But it's just memorable. And that's the thing. You need to stand out because they pitch so much. And it's the same if you're selling, to people or whatever. It's just, people are used to being sold to. They're not used to being told a story.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But it's the same as I'm reading now several business books, and I feel like some of them are so heavy just because of so much information. But then I'm reading others that are much less heavy but there is the same amount of information just because of the story. This happened to me, or this happened to this person. You relate to personal stories. You don't relate to, this company made X revenue by doing this, because it doesn't feel personal. It doesn't feel nice. It doesn't flow in your head. You always end up losing it in your brain. The same as school. How can you learn 100 new song lyrics in your head, but you cannot learn 3 bullet points from biology? Right. Because you're not interested. It's not a story.
No emotional attachment there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The brain works in that way, literally from a biological level. That it's more likely to retain information that's assigned with a chemical response. So if it elicits an emotional response, it releases chemicals, then it's going to remember that experience, which is why we get traumatized or why we fall in love and all those kinds of things, right? Yeah, no, exactly. It's a good example of that as well. It's if I ask founders what is their favorite movies or documentaries about entrepreneurship, I could ask you right now. Actually, I'll ask you first before I explain why. So what are your favorite movies or documentaries about entrepreneurship, startups, things like that? Or even TV series, anything like that?
So there's something that I say. So just a bit of explanation before I tell you. There's something I say sometimes as a joke to my co-founder. So, okay, if this is 100% a joke, well, a joke is not always 100% a joke, but
99.9%.
like that. Exactly. It's like, I understand why founders of really, really successful companies became assholes at the end.
Yeah.
I do understand it, because there's so many things that piss you off that you end up bitter. So that's why humor, it's a good one. But yeah, that's why I tell Jules that all the time as a joke. And that's why I love the TV shows. I really, really like The Founder,
Right.
The movie. I don't remember how it's called now, but the Uber founder, which is a TV show.
Right. Okay, I haven't heard of that.
Let me check. Because I actually saw it last time my co-founder was over in London. Super Pumped.
Oh, okay, not heard of that.
Super Pumped. It's really nice.
Yeah. And The Founder, the movie you're talking about, is the one with Michael Keaton about the McDonald's story.
McDonald's.
Yeah,
and I really also like The Dropout. I think that's a story that we should all know to not repeat.
Yeah, it's a warning story, but a very, very, very interesting story. Yeah.
Very powerful.
Yeah. So let me explain then what I was. So whenever I ask people that question, they never name any documentaries.
Okay.
But the question was, can you tell me any movies, TV shows, or documentaries that you found? But again, it's because they're not memorable. You've probably seen quite a lot of documentaries, or you may have looked at them and gone, "That looks fucking boring," right? But it's not memorable. You're not going to remember it, but you definitely remember the performance of Michael Keaton and how he screwed over those people, especially when it's more on the negative side of things, right? Because of, like you said, The Dropout is quite a negative story of someone doing things badly. The Founder is a story about someone screwing over the original creators of McDonald's to build an empire. I don't know.
Uber, you'll see. I'm not going to spoil you.
I'll check it out. But was it a similar kind of thing, I assume, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's interesting that these stories stick with us. Like, a good example of that for the world of sales is The Wolf of Wall Street. People always talk about that movie, right, as like their favorite movie, even though they're salespeople. And it's like, yeah, but you would never do those kinds of things. But it's memorable, and they, and obviously we all have a bias towards negative behavior anyway. So
100%.
So yeah, I just always find that super interesting. So narrative is important. It gives everything meaning,
Yes. I think that we are trying to do the same for the business, to create kind of a brand that narrates to its customers. We're not going to be like, hey, we offer eSIM plans for £5. No, we want to say, hey, we offer eSIM plans because you need to text your mom while you're abroad.
Yeah. And that's essentially what a brand is, right? Which I think people forget about, is a brand isn't just like changing your logo to the rainbow flag every time it's Pride Month. Your brand is your story, and that's what connects with people. And everything you do, if it facilitates that story and expresses that story, people can then have that emotional connection with a company. That's why people have emotional connections with things like Tesla, with things like Uber, or Just Eat, or whatever. People actually have certain connections with companies beyond just the fact that they're useful.
Exactly.
They buy into it.
The emotion of it. So I was reading in a book that the founder of the Dermatologica, which is a skincare brand, she was saying that the worst thing in business is being neutral. Like, you want people to hate you a bit, and you want people to love you, but you don't want people to just think, yeah, it's okay. I don't care. Because like, not giving a crap about your brand is what is going to make you lose customers and ruin your business. So you always need to have a passion and emotion, create something in the customer, not just leave them indifferent, saying, okay, yeah, I use this, I'm not going to care anymore.
That's a really good point. And it's interesting because if you see a lot of companies, big companies, make, controversial decisions in their marketing or things like that. And, I think some of us know it's intentional. Like you said, negative attention, any press is good press, right? Like, there's no such thing as bad press. And so, when Nike or a clothes brand releases an image of an overweight woman of color, and, then it gets backlash, who's a model, and all this kind of stuff that they do to kind of tap into people's sensitivities about political topics and racial topics and all that. It's like, this is purely fucking intentional. Like, they don't care about any of this stuff. They just know that if they do it, it gives them attention.
Yeah, which is absolutely bullshit.
Yeah.
The first example that popped into my mind was what Balenciaga did as well. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, everybody
What was
thinks,
that?
oh, they did. So they did images that was related to some sects and cults and child abuse. Yes, it was really, really, really bad. But what happened? Every famous person in this planet talked about them because many people actually bought from them. Did that drop sales? Maybe, but that held more attention. And attention is the most important thing a human being can give you as a brand, right? Because without attention, you are nothing. So it feels like we are always being manipulated somehow.
Oh yeah. Social media creators and influencers are a really good example of this, because the vast majority of them do controversial things in order to get attention. Like that's basically it. Like they're attention whores, and they know that they need to continuously do something in order to get attention, and it's usually something negative because they know that works better than doing something positive. Like it's far easier to get attention for kicking a homeless person on TikTok than it is for giving them money on TikTok. Like everyone's just going to be like, well, you should be nice to people. So yeah, well, that's not anything new.
But people have a lot of hate, and the internet is the perfect example. Like, how did we used to hate before the internet?
We would just hate our neighbors.
Yes, exactly. And now the thing is, you can hate everyone, and you can be anonymous hate people, which is amazing because people have so much hate inside. They can just release it, and it's horrible because everybody has something to say about everything. That's why I'm not very, very active on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I'm a bit more active on LinkedIn. But it's so much hate, and I don't understand it. Like, why do you care? If this famous person did this, why? What's your problem?
It's a lack of purpose. That's my theory. People there's an epidemic of lack of purpose in people's lives across the world, and so when there's a lack of purpose, it creates a hostile environment inside your mind. You're angry at the world for not having a purpose because you believe it's the world's fault, when the world doesn't owe you anything. It's up to you to give yourself purpose. So you're just going to shout and scream at everything that you think annoys you. And some people make hate their purpose too, which is a complete lunacy. But to your point about to not go too far down that rabbit hole, to your point about a company having something basically like a personality, like I think is really important. And you're right, there's so many companies that play it safe. Like I'm having this debate internally with my own company now that's just come out of stealth, where early on, I don't think it matters too much. You just need to get it out there, and there's so many more important things. But definitely as things progress, I know I'm going to need to start thinking about the brand identity and if it has personality and things like that. And I always look to a great company online, a great example of this called Lavender. I don't know if you've heard of them. Look them up on TikTok. No. Every single one of their employees, including the CEO, right from the beginning, has always had a very prominent personality. In the way that they post, in the kind of content they put out there. Like for me, that's a prime example of not just getting a logo that's boring or a branding that's boring. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's like, have fun, like do some stuff. And then we need more of that, because it's so easy to get the stock images and put them on your website, and just go with safe colors and all of that sort of thing. Just like go for it. Like who cares? Enjoy yourself.
Exactly.
Like I said, don't take yourself too seriously. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's such a good example. I was reading in a book lately that yes, you need to be bold. You need to do stuff that you love because it's your company. Like, and it's the early stage. So I think what we have been doing so far with ZIM is also we played it a bit safe. And now today, literally, I just had an interview with our brand specialist. And she's interviewing everybody in the company to understand, like, where do we want the brand to go? And we need to be all aligned on that. And we want to be more bold. We want to be more adventurous. And I believe we will achieve that in the next couple of months. We want to be like a brand that people relate to, not just, like a logo and a couple of images on Instagram.
Yeah, I will definitely check out Lavender and check out their employees.
Okay.
So they hired a few months ago 2 very well-known sales influencers as their main sales leads. which was, I thought, a very clever move as well on their part, that they didn't just hire anyone. They went for the two most prominent salespeople online on LinkedIn and TikTok and stuff. They're like sales influencers, and the content they create is funny, it's engaging, it's brilliant. So yeah, I can't recommend them enough. They're really, really good for that sort of stuff.
I'll have a look.
Yeah. Check them out. Yeah, that's my recommendation. But yeah, that's interesting process though. Like how did that come about? Like, so you want to speak to everyone, right? But this is always the big sort of thing, isn't it? It's like, does everyone really have an equal voice in a business?
We are very small still. We are 9 people only.
Okay,
so I
right.
believe it's small enough for everyone to have a voice. And that's what we said with our brand specialists, is that it's the right moment, because in a few months we're going to start growing. And the thing is, the people that have been, the 9 people that we are now, we have been together since the beginning. So we kind of seen the business.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But so
you wouldn't ask the guy that's been there for a week.
No,
yeah,
definitely not, because I believe 1 week doesn't, or even 1 month doesn't showcase what we have been working for.
They'll be like,
years.
change the company name, make the logo green with polka dots. Like, crazy shit. Yeah,
exactly. And at some point we were talking about changing the company name, and we're like, no, I just can't. It's the name that started it all. So no.
Yeah. Why were you thinking of changing the name? I like the name too. Why did that even come up?
Because ZIM actually started as a joke.
Okay.
We're like, how should we call it? ZIM, and it just kind of stuck. And my friends started calling it ZIM, and me and Julia started calling it ZIM until we figured out a new name, and never had time to actually look for a name. Then we found names, but they were already taken. So yeah, it just became ZIM, and we asked our product manager to say, hey, we called it ZIM. Can you find kind of an explanation for this name? And he came up with a SIM for Generation Z. So there you go. It works out.
Yeah,
it works out.
I wonder, is there, because there are certain letters in the English alphabet that certain countries and people with certain linguistic backgrounds can't pronounce.
Yes.
Are there any? I'm trying to think if there are any that can't pronounce the Z in ZIM, or they struggle with that. I don't think so. I think ZIM is probably easier to pronounce than SIM, right?
Yeah.
So if anything, you've just created the international word for SIM, which is probably more difficult. So there's another reason.
I love that.
It's easier to pronounce. It's like the reason 100%. Why, what was it? There was that famous change. What was it? Was it Jif? Yeah, Jif. That was like a cleaning brand.
Okay.
And they changed their company name to SIF because they found that international people couldn't pronounce the J. Right?
Okay.
So they've
That's
changed
really
it to
interesting.
SIF. Yeah. So that could be your reason.
Yes, exactly. And also, customers are starting to call an eSIM a ZIM. So that's great. I'm happy with that. Like, they're like, my ZIM doesn't work, or my ZIM is doing this, and I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
That's good. It's like the new Google. You're going to end up in the dictionary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hopefully one day, when we'll end up in the dictionary, we'll have a beer.
Yeah. Actually, I wonder if there is a definition of the word ZIM. Define ZIM. Let's see what it says.
Are you asking ChatGPT?
No, just Google. Abbreviation of Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. That's it. That's nothing else. So yeah.
We have had issues with that, actually.
Urban Dictionary. Oh, really? That's come up, has it?
So the Twitter handle for ZIM is held by a Zimbabwean community, and they haven't used their handle for
your
decades.
Your audio's gone really weird all of a sudden.
Your audio is really weird as well.
Oh, okay. I haven't done anything on my end. Are your pods running out of battery, maybe?
Oh yes, I can hear you now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we are. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, sorry, you were saying about ZIM. So what Twitter was it that was taken or something?
Yeah, so the Twitter handle that we needed for the company was ZIM. It was actually taken by a Zimbabwean community, and they haven't used it for decades. So we actually wanted to get it back, but it's been a bit of a hassle. So yeah, we have had connections with Zimbabwean companies and the country itself. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it is what it is, but you know, a potentially baked in branding audience there already in Zimbabwe that could use the product because they you know,
Exactly.
it resonates with them straight away. I do see as well in the Urban Dictionary, there's something related to Zimala, a silly kind of ditzy, absent-minded person.
Oh,
I've never heard of that before.
never heard of that.
I'm pretty sure that Urban Dictionary just makes shit up at this point. There you go. Yeah, so you mentioned there about growth over the next couple of months. Now that's always a scary thing, and I know we spoke about that before as well. But like, yeah, what is that sort of roadmap of growth looking like? Does it feel like that you've plotted out the last couple of months? Because like you said, to your own admission, you like to plan things quite meticulously. Do you feel like that it's a pretty clear path of sort of what the rest of this year is going to look like into maybe Q1 of next year?
Yes. So planning is my thing, and I have planned. Although I know that when I plan, it never goes how I plan it, because startup world and we have new projects coming. So I always leave time for unexpected things. I hope it will go as I planned. Actually, I hope it goes better.
Right.
But I'm always a bit more negative on the numbers side and how we're doing, just because I don't want to get my hopes really up and then promise things that I'm not going to be able to deliver. So I'm learning how to do that now. And yes, 6 months from now, it looks nice. It looks like a really nice path. We are growing a lot in the B2C sector. We're growing a lot also in the B2B. So we're making deals with really, really cool companies. And yeah, keep growing those channels, mostly B2B. And let's see where we are here in 6 months and also in 1 year. I can tell you what will happen in the next month. I'm not able to tell you what will happen in the next 3 months.
Right, just to be safe. Yeah. And can you explain a bit more to those listening, because obviously we've talked about this before, but so I do already remember from that conversation, but what you mean more about the B2B side of things?
Yes. So on the B2C side, as a customer, you can come to our app, buy an eSIM plan wherever you're going. On the B2B, so we provide on a B2B2C scale to companies that want to sell eSIMs to their consumers through our technology. Through an API, they can integrate with us and they get access to 190 destinations, so very easy for them. And it kind of creates a new revenue channel for them.
That's awesome.
And then pure B2B, companies that want to decrease fraction for employees while they're traveling and not have those SIM cards being exchanged. And also they want to reduce roaming costs. So we do have companies that have a lot of employees traveling and they just need an eSIM management portal. We assign eSIMs to their consumers and their employees, and that's it.
That's awesome. So what kind of companies are you working with in sort of both of these scenarios typically? Like corporations, I imagine, for the latter one, but for the first one, what sort of businesses generally want to be resellers?
Travel mobility, everything that has travelers as a center of their consumers, it could be a partner of ours.
So like travel agents and things like that.
Yeah, we can have travel agents, but also travel tech companies that offer, for example, Booking.com would be a great, amazing partner. Hey, Booking, if you're listening to this, drop me a DM.
And if you're listening to this, leave a comment because that would be really good for the reach of this episode.
and some free credits for our next travel. That would be amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
Asking for a bit too much here, but yes, for these type of companies would be amazing partners.
Yeah. Oh, and also Booking.com, if you're listening, stop fucking me over on the room. Every time I book, I always get a different room. Stop fucking me over. Right. Yeah, it's annoying.
Oh.
Yeah. If I book through, I actually stopped booking through Booking.com now, to be completely transparent, because every time I would book a room, there would be like this small print that you would miss. I learned quickly to find it, but they would say, sometimes the room that we show might not be available. And I remember one time going, I think it was even on a honeymoon. My wife and I, we went, well, not like the official honeymoon, but like a hotel we went to after the wedding for like a day or two. And they were like, oh, sorry, no, that room isn't available. And I was like, well, we booked it through Booking.com. It's like, yeah, their policy isn't great, that they show that it's available even though it's not. But luckily they sorted us out. But I remember being very annoyed and then deciding not to use them again, because I don't think that was the first time that happened either. So yeah, they gave us 2 separate beds.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. It's like, Jesus, we haven't been married that long. It's only been a day. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now that'll be fine. We've been married 5 years. That'd be great. But maybe not there.
But yeah, honestly, I've been using my parents' Booking.com account, and I think I'll use it for forever, because
Yeah.
their Genius 3, they started using Booking in 2006.
Wow.
I think that's when they started, or 2011, but that was years ago. So they have so
Yeah.
many points that I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, it's probably my fault for just not reading the small print. But yeah, they would be a great partner because of
Yes.
yeah, I mean the vast majority of the people that would be using their services. And then yeah, I suppose any other areas you can book similar sort of things for travel would be great. So how were those talks going? Like maybe not with Booking.com. I don't know, maybe you are speaking with them, but how are these sort of partnerships developing and these other B2B things going? Are they going quite well?
So yes, it's a channel that we are exploiting quite a lot. So it's both my co-founder and I who are exploring it at the moment.
Right.
We are looking to hire somebody in the next months to actually take care of this channel for us, because we are being way too busy to focus 100% on this channel. But they're going well. We are doing a lot of warm leads. We are having a lot of inbound as well. So I do believe we need to start exploring outbound, because there's a lot of potential there. But we are doing really, really cool project that we feel very related to. So we are working with a project, I don't know if I can say it, but with a railway company.
Right.
We need to ask them. With a railway company, and it feels very close to heart because it targets travelers. We target travelers. We love their company values, and we hope that this will give example to other companies to join our B2B channel.
Yeah, there's someone I'm going to have to introduce you to, actually. I'm going to, at some point. I'm not sure what you guys could maybe do together, but he's actually a client of mine that I work with. He's the CEO and co-founder of an app called Zonda, which is an international travel game, basically. So it gamifies travel. So you get points when you visit different places, and it kind of just encourages you to explore. It's a beautifully designed platform. He's got thousands of users all across the world who are using the platform, and it's just really interesting. I don't know what maybe you could do together, but he's an early stage startup too.
Nice.
But I wonder if maybe there's some crossover there because of
Yes,
that.
100%.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing that he's doing, and obviously you'd be serving the same sort of, for the most part, the same sort of community. He gets a lot of people who like to explore locally too.
Yeah.
But equally internationally, it's kind of like his main thing. So yeah, I'll introduce you maybe after this. Yeah, he's a lovely guy, very interesting guy too, and yeah, that'd be interesting.
Because actually, when you are traveling abroad and you need to use an app for the gamification part of your trip, you need to stay connected. Because without connectivity, you don't have the access to the app. So there you go.
There you are. Yeah, yes, good point. Yeah, because otherwise you get charged a shit ton of money. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, interesting. There you go. See, you knew better than me. I knew there was something there, but I didn't know what. So I just come up with the baby of an idea, and I let other people do the work. So,
I love
that. Yeah, I like to call myself the father of unicorns.
Oh, nice.
No, I just made that up. I don't call myself that.
We will
maybe one day
as well.
Yeah, maybe one day that would be like my name, but yeah, that can be what I aspire to. So tell me a bit more about you, right? So what do you? Because look, this is like going back to what we were talking about personality and story and stuff like that. This is why I also love doing this. There's another reason is I think it affords people the opportunity, founders the opportunity to tell their story beyond just how the company started and stuff, but also about them. So like, tell me a bit more about you. What do you like doing outside of all of this nonsense? Do you have time for hobbies? Do you have time for socializing? Like, and if you do, what kind of stuff do you do?
Oh, wow. I love this question because it feels a harder question to answer than
yeah.
business part of it. What do I do? What do I like doing?
You eat food.
I love food.
Okay, good.
I love food. I think everybody likes food.
Yes.
I'm
just checking because a lot of founders forget.
No. I love food. So if somebody doesn't love food, it's not to be trusted. Because
I agree.
And plus, right now I'm living in London. I'm experiencing so many different cuisines. So definitely that's a hobby. If eating can be called a hobby.
I would say so. Yeah.
Because I don't really cook that much, and if I cook, I only cook the same thing all over and over again. So definitely cooking is not a hobby. Um, I try to do some sports. I'm starting to enjoy Pilates more than any other thing right now. I do love swimming, but I'm in London and I do not have access to a pool, so that doesn't happen very often. But when I go back home in Spain, I do swim a lot.
There's a big river in London.
Oh yes, because that's very feasible on in the I would be already dead if I would swim the river. And I do like, I socialize with my friends. I see people on the weekends. So you make time when you want to make time, and everybody that says, yeah, I'm too busy, it means they just don't want to make time. So I do give myself time to see my friends, to see the people I love, and spend time with them. And yes, I am very focused on the company right now, but I do have also personal life, which I love. And I'm going on holiday for 1 week starting tomorrow. And
excellent.
yes.
Excellent. Where are you going?
To Indonesia.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. Are you going just by yourself or with some friends or family?
With a partner.
Sorry?
With my partner.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome. That's
yes.
great. Yeah. Yes. So what kind of holidays do you like? Do you like the sort of resort, put your feet up next to a pool and a cocktail kind of holiday, or more sort of traveling, exploring, that kind of thing?
Both. I like the mixture of both. So I like to in the after, like maybe I do not like waking up super early when I'm on holiday, because I already do that on my day-to-day basis. It doesn't feel like holiday anymore. But I do like to spend some time relaxing, but I also like to see stuff. And being a tourist, I like being a tourist. I like also feeling the local culture, but I like being a tourist. I like to see touristy things. Mostly when I'm outside of Europe, I think it's key to kind of understand the country that you're visiting as well. Try new foods. It's actually the second time I'm able to use ZIM as a traveler rather than a business owner.
Oh, really?
Since we started business, because I haven't had time. I haven't traveled internationally outside of Europe since 2019. So
you could do it more and just say that it's company research.
Yes, we're actually going to Vegas in 2 weeks with my co-founder for Mobile World Congress, and it's also an excuse to just
gamble.
Vegas doesn't have. Vegas is not the best place to go to, because it doesn't have a lot in terms of touristic interests. But we're going to see the Grand Canyon for the first time, so definitely I love traveling, and I don't think that will ever change. It's one of my biggest passions. That's why I built a company. And traveling is a hobby. It's just I have a bit less time to do it. Yeah. But hopefully you can do more of that. And as the company grows, I mean, I was kind of joking about that excuse, but actually it is a valid one to a degree, that you will want to be going to these different countries to maybe speak with users, to speak with future investors in these countries, maybe set up new offices, like who knows, right? So actually, as things grow, the opportunities there will present themselves more and more, hopefully. Exactly. And I do love that. But it's true that I do love travel, but sometimes travel doesn't love me back, because I get very, very jet lagged, very sick. So I need to kind of find that balance, because I see many people that travel nonstop, and I couldn't be a digital nomad, but I would love to have that lifestyle.
Yeah, I know a few people that just basically live in airports, and I just don't understand how they can do that. Like,
it's not for me.
Yeah, no, that seems like a crazy lifestyle. Like, it's one thing to commute. Our generation can't even commute to work, a half an hour away, let alone like a different time zone.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And you mentioned about your friends. Like, so a common theme that I've found in speaking with founders over the years is that they found it quite difficult to maintain relationships with their group of friends as they've gone into entrepreneurialism and as they've started founding their own companies, because they found that there's a bit of a distance that comes between them quite often, because of the shared experiences are no longer the same and so on. How have you managed to navigate that with your personal relationships? Have you found that difficult at all, or?
Yes. The good thing is I'm doing this experience with my best friend, who is my co-founder. So we're actually really, really good friends before we started this.
Right.
We had to care a lot of our relationship, because it's hard, because at some point you only talk about business and you kind of forget the personal side of friendship. And we had to kind of talk about it and say, yeah, we are still friends. We still need to talk about each other and our lives and still show appreciation, because we are not only business partners. We also had a relationship before this. And that, for us, it has been going really, really well. We just have this really good relationship where we can talk about anything at all times without fighting or getting mad at each other. If there's things that we disagree on, we talk about it. So that has definitely helped my startup journey, because working with somebody that is always there for you emotionally, it's really, really, really great. And also our relationship as friends, I would say it hasn't improved, but it hasn't gone worse.
Right.
So it's still there, and we're still really good friends. With my other groups of friends, so it depends on the person. With some persons, maybe because I have more, we are more distanced physically, because most of my friends are back in Spain. You get a bit more separated emotionally as well, because maybe I don't have time to call them at all times as we did before. And my friends were really supportive and are still being very supportive till now. So they are also quite interested. At the beginning, they were a bit more hesitant. Like, what are you doing? Now they get a bit more interested. So they ask. Now
that you're funded, right?
That's exactly. Damn it. They've been more interested, and they ask questions, and it feels like they find it interesting. It's true that maybe we don't have the same things. Like on my day-to-day basis, I discuss $1 million investments, and they discuss where they are going to go out that night, so different topics of discussion, but we still find a common ground. So my relationship has been good with my friends so far. I think I also am the type of person that nurtures it. And on my weekends, when I spend time with them, I spend time with them. I feel like it depends on the person. And also I tend to choose my relationships quite well. So I have friends that are very close that I know they're going to bring me value. And I don't tend to go near toxic people. I hope so, at least. That's my perception. So yeah, for me, has been a good experience so far.
That's really good to hear, because I think, and I think a lot of people listening to this could take a lot away from that, what you just said, because of so many people I've spoken to have found that it's completely fallen apart, their social life, and I think one of the main bits is that you touched on there is about like the things that you talk about versus the things that they talk about, and they're just like, this is boring, and I especially if they're so used to a hectic day, talking to, like you said, about all of the intricacies of business, or having conversations like this that they find, intellectually and emotionally stimulating. They then sort of sit down with their friends and just like, they're like, this is nothing. Like, what are we talking about? And they feel very distant from that, and vice versa. Their friends feel the same way. So I think what you've described there is a really important thing to do, which is to nurture those relationships regardless, because they're important. And these are people that you love and love you, and don't let it go necessarily, unless they're toxic, obviously. Then
exactly. And also, you don't need to talk about business 24/7. If you're on a day-to-day basis, if 9 to 9 you're all talking about business from Monday to Friday, don't you want to like take a beer with your friends and just talk about normal stuff, like what did you eat and how did you prepare that, and where are we going to drink tonight, on what games should we play? These type of conversations that normal human beings have, it's really important to keep that, because otherwise you're never going to disconnect from your work, and never disconnecting will make you literally lose yourself in the process. And if you lose yourself, then the business is going to be lost as well. So it's like kind of a circle. You cannot just be a business person 24/7. You need to be a friend, you need to be a partner, you need to be, if you have kids, a dad, a mom, etc. You need to be several different personalities in order for you not to lose your mind.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And like to that comment I made earlier about people not having purpose, like I think that's a common mistake people make, is that they believe purpose means having one purpose, and in fact that doesn't satisfy our emotional and intellectual needs.
A friendly reminder to share this episode with your network, subscribe for more, and join the conversation in the comments. It really helps us out. Thank you.
As human beings, we need to actually have multiple purposes in order to feel satisfied, emotionally and physically and mentally and so on. And that's, through relationships, like you said, whether that's romantic relationships, friendship circles, responsibilities as a parent or a partner, or a husband or a wife, and then professional, responsibilities too. There's like there's a couple of things that need to be fulfilled there. And if all those boxes are ticked, you generally find you have a fairly well-rounded, stable individual who is happy in life, and that's like considered to be a standard in psychology. As long as those things are fulfilled, the person is likely to succeed. But if something is missing, then there could be problems, along the road. How has your partner been throughout the whole process? Has he had to put up with you ripping your hair out at points and stuff, I imagine?
I think everyone next to me had to see that. Even my parents saw me in really, really bad moments. My family.
That's what they're there for, though, right?
Yeah, it's exactly. Because otherwise, if you're alone, you would go completely crazy. And I had really, really bad moments. I had really, really great moments as well. So I think there's a balance. I'm gonna have really bad moments in any job, right?
Yeah.
You always will have really bad moments in any type of path that you're gonna take. Life is not easy. I mean, I think everybody wants what they don't have. I would in the hard moments, I think, oh my God, I would love to have a normal, steady job that pays me X amount of money. But then I know I don't actually mean that.
We all think that at some point. We all think that. We're like, what the fuck am I doing this for?
Exactly.
I just kept the 9 to 5. Why don't I just go work at McDonald's? This is all bullshit. And then you're like, you wake up the next day and you're like, no, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that because everybody goes through that. When I tell to my family, to my friends, they're all like, but it happens to us every day. And some of them are like, I wish I could be you. And I was like, no, I wish I could be you. So it feels like this for everyone. You just need to understand that the bad moments are never going to stop and the good moments are never going to stop either. You're always going to have ups and downs. And I do have downs, but I know that what I'm going to cry about today, it's not going to matter in 3 months. So
it's like you said, not taking things too personally.
Exactly.
Is the key to that, because I mean it's not going to help solve the problem. I mean, and I've always had that opinion for everything in life, which is, if you dwell on something and have an emotional response to it, or at least too emotional, don't rob yourself of feeling. But like, if it's too an emotional response, that's not going to, start getting the problem solved. You need to sit down and start using your brain, not your heart, But I had a really interesting conversation in the last episode with 2 co-founders who we started talking about their faith. Their faith become a very prominent discussion. Pretty much the whole second half of the episode, actually, we were talking primarily about how their faith plays a really important part in the way that they approach running the company and dealing with hardship and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was really interesting, and I'd not had that conversation before, and it really opened my mind up to things. And a lot of what they were saying was that, when they encounter difficulties and things like that they can relate that to just being part of God's plan, and that they know that because of that there's a comfort that they don't need to overreact. They can just kind of take it as it comes, deal with it and move on, and not hold on to it because of that. And I thought that was really quite awesome to hear. Like, that's because of, I think we all found different ways of getting to that same conclusion and the same way of dealing with it, but for them it was their faith that got them there, which I thought was super interesting. What do you think is your motivational forces behind you getting to that point? Is it something similar? Is it something spiritual, or is it more just lived experience? And what do you think?
I think it's not faith. I'm not a spiritual person. What is it? It's making myself proud.
Right.
I think it's a big part of it. Making my parents proud as well, because I think at the beginning they didn't actually believe that we were going to go anywhere.
Right.
And they're seeing this growing, and it makes them happy, I hope. And I just really love what I'm doing. I feel like I wouldn't be better anywhere else at the moment. And I think that gives me a lot of motivation. And then finally, my biggest motivation is my co-founder. So if I have a bad day, I call him, we have a laugh, and we keep going. So, and I think I hope it's the case for her as well. I do believe I motivate her as well. And having a good co-founder or somebody that you can rely on, I think is motivation, because there are days that I'm like, fuck this shit.
Yeah.
Like, literally, it's not worth it. And we talk about it and realize, and she's like, you don't realize how lucky we are to do what we are doing. And then, of course, it puts you to think, and you're like, okay, yes, you're right. Somebody asked me from a VC that they do behavioral investments. So they actually talk to the founders about their behaviors and ask really weird questions. Like, if you could be a dog, what dog would you be? But the question that was interesting to me was like, what would make you leave your business today?
Interesting question.
What would you say?
What would I say?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, I honestly don't know. Like, I think the obvious answer would be like a shit ton of money, right? But even then, thinking about it, it's like,
no, but leave your business today. Like, you need to go out of the door and never look back. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think I can answer that question, to be honest. But because like I said, the obvious instinctive answer that comes to mind straight away when you hear that is, well, a shit ton of money, because then, that's the whole point. And then I'm like, no, but that isn't the only reason why I do this. Yeah. So actually, if I had a shit ton of money, I would probably want to just keep doing what I'm doing, and then there wouldn't be enough to stop what I'm doing. I get more out of it than money, So
what I answered, I didn't even thought about the money at that stage. I was like so lost about the question. And the only answer I had at the moment is if my co-founder leaves, I would leave as well.
Right. Yeah.
And then they asked me like, why would your co-founder leave? And I was like, I don't know. You have to ask her.
If you left. So then it's an impossible situation. Yeah.
I said, I don't know. Like, you have to ask her that question. Like, my interview is over now.
Yeah. It's a really interesting question. I suppose for me, it would depend on which business we're talking about as well. But yeah, no, that's a really interesting question. And I think you answered that question perfectly, by the way.
I'm not sure. They never invested, so.
Oh, well, fuck them then. No, it's a stupid question. I take back what I said. It's not an interesting question. It's a stupid question.
It was an interesting chat. It was definitely an interesting chat. And I do have a really good relationship with the person that handles that works in that fund. So yeah, it's been fun.
Well, I mean, I suppose for me that's the ideal answer, but actually maybe for an investor that's a red flag, because it's like, well, if we need to fire this person, or if they're underperforming, can we expect this person to make a tough decision? And that's quite often a consideration for a lot of investors about personal relationships between co-founders and other founding members. It's like, if you're friends with them, if you're married with them, or if you have a romantic relationship with them, can you make hard decisions with them? And if you can't, then they're like, no, which is why so many founders who are romantically involved don't get funding.
Exactly. Yeah, I know that. But for us, we are really good friends. If at some point the decision needs to be made, one of us leaving, I think we would talk about it. Of course, that has never been the case so far. But yes, definitely, it would be a hard decision. And honestly, like, I've seen co-founders that they didn't know each other before, like really well before they co-founded a company, and it went like shit because the relationship was really, really bad because literally they didn't know how to handle each other. So what's better, having a really successful company with two people that know each other very, very well, but you cannot kick any of them out if you don't kick both, or have a company that's going really shit because the co-founders don't know each other, but you can keep one out. So at the end of it, the VCs have to, and investors in general, they have to take a decision, and it's their own problem.
It's always a gamble. I think, their job is to just mitigate risk, to assess risk and mitigate it. And, they do that in a number of ways that you and I probably won't fully understand. But, this must be a calculation, right? Does the benefit outweigh the risk? And that's all part of the consideration. But to your point about you and your co-founder, like how have you ever had to deal with, it must be quite difficult to navigate certain situations, right? But given your personal relationship, like, have you ever found yourself in sort of difficult situation where you've had to, take them aside, and say, look, I'm not too happy about this. And if so, like, how did that go basically? Did it go, do you feel like that the relationship is strong enough, that the co-founder relationship is strong enough that you were able to transcend that and just get through it? Or did it maybe in the beginning feel a little bit strange and cause some problems?
No. So even if personally we are disagreeing, like on personal life matters, not the business matters.
Right.
We are not maybe looking at the same page at the moment, and we are literally not mad at each other, but just not happy.
Yeah.
We wouldn't let that interfere with the business ever. And in business matters, so far so good. We have had a couple of disagreements, but never something major that would fuck our relationship up.
Yeah. Does that not worry a little bit that you haven't had that experience yet? That if something big was to come up, that because you haven't been there yet, that it would be entirely new and you wouldn't maybe know how to navigate that? Or do you feel like that's a good thing because it means actually probably if something big was to come up, we would just deal with it the same way we always have?
I think we do have really good communication skills, both of us, and I think we would talk about it. And if there's something that we disagree on, and it has happened in the past that we disagree on stuff, and I know what her skills are, and she knows what my skills are. So in some things, I said, okay, you know this, I won't interfere. You take the decision. I will agree with you. And the most important thing is I agree with her publicly on everything that we talk about.
That's good.
Then we will talk it behind. This is the same thing as with a romantic relationship. You never disagree with your partner in public.
Absolutely.
Like, no, you just don't. You don't talk bad about your co-founder. Even if they did something, you'll talk it in the behind. So I think that is really, really key, because I've seen co-founders tear each other up publicly. And the company goes to shit because nobody's going to trust you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's just like you're right to make that comparison with like a romantic partner too. Like I've always been an advocate for that. Like I've having met boyfriends and girlfriends of people, and they're just moaning about it. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like I would never say a bad word about anyone I've been in a relationship with, let alone my wife. Exactly. Like what the fuck? Like this is someone that you're meant to love and cherish. Like it's and respect. And it sounds and also it could be something very insignificant and small, but the fact that you vocalized it, like that's all you're vocalizing. You're probably not sitting there telling them about all the great things. So that they're only taking away the negative thing. Because like we've talked about, people that's what people remember. So it's like you're painting a very bad picture of another person when you do that, which is just awful. Like the two that the co-founders that I was talking about that I interviewed in the last episode, they couldn't speak highly enough of each other. And I've met a few co-founders like that now, of these that I've had on, and it's just been so wonderful to see how supportive and how they just big each other up, right? Like it's just great. Like even the one co-founder there, he actually did the introduction of the other, because he was like, I'm gonna have to do his introduction because he's too humble and he won't, and he did it, and it was amazing.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's really, really great to hear.
It's what makes business work, good relationships. And you're going to get into it's even worse than being married, having business together. It's even worse that you spend so much time with the same person every day. And of course, the stress that comes with it. So make a good choice. I think you talked about giving tips to other founders. Just choose a good co-founder. Yeah. Because when you're bad, your co-founder will be able to lift you up or be good at least. I've been sick this year a couple of times. I had COVID 3 times and I had the flu 1 time. So really, really bad luck this past year in terms of health. And who covered for me? My co-founder. And she understands. She's not going to tell me, oh, well, fucking hell, you have been sick the 3rd time this year. No, she's going to understand because she knows me. And I've heard about co-founders that are like, oh, no, you're always sick. Well, I'm sorry. But need to talk, to have open communication. Like, hey, I'm not feeling well. Can you cover for me? Things like that are really, really important. And it's
a bit of empathy goes a very long way. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm very fortunate as well. Like, I just realized I haven't brought up my co-founder, but my co-founder, he's incredible. And this for the SaaS startup that I'm working on. We met a long time ago now. Where he had the version of the product, which is going to be drastically changed at launch, but incredibly intelligent guy, and just a wonderful mannerism about him, a very, very kind person, very warm, and there's some people you just meet, just like, you're a good human being, like, and that's and the fact that he's incredibly intelligent and knows the problem and the solution inside and out too, like, and has a mind that works in a way that is hugely complementary to mine, I think, is what appealed to me. And I was like, that's why when it came to the decision of deciding to be co-founders together, it was like, it's a no-brainer for me. Exactly. I don't know what he would say about me, but yeah, and and also I like to think that I'm quite an adaptable person, and I think that's a really important trait to have as a CEO. Going back to what we were talking about growing up with international students or going to school with a lot of people from different cultures, you learn to be adaptable.
Yes.
And not necessarily change your entire person, but at least cater different personalities and recognize that, maybe you need to take a bit more of a back seat in a social interaction, and maybe you need to be a bit more upfront and things like that. You can be a bit more of a social chameleon in things. And I think that helps too.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So you mentioned that question about what would it take for you guys to leave, right? So I'm curious now, if you were both, you and your co-founder, let's say in 2, 3, 4 years time, to get a great offer to buy the company, there's your exit opportunity. You've taken the company to where you wanted it to go. It's now, turning over billions or millions or whatever, and then you now get a great offer on the table, and you both decide to take it. So I'm making the decision for you.
Okay.
What do you reckon would be next? Do you think you would both want to do something else together, maybe go out on your own? And obviously there's a lot of unknowns by that point. You might hate each other, I don't know, but let's assume the relationship's still great, right? What do you think? Would you both want to do this again, do you think? Or
yes, 100%. Yeah. I say sometimes that I would never go back to startup, but I'm sure I will. I think we would take a break.
Yeah.
To use the product that we actually built, go travel several months, relax, see the world, experience new things. Well, you said there was a good cash, right? So we would use a bit of that cash to just give ourselves a tap in the back and just travel the world. I'm not saying together, but yeah, I think she mentions that a lot as well. She's like, I want to travel. And then, yes, I think we will do it all over again. We were discussing a lot of times about a fund. We don't really love how VCs work nowadays. We have found several VCs that are really, really aligned with what we think and our values, but most of them are not. So looking at VC investing and all of that in startups, I believe it will make us happy. Or if we have another good idea, why not start all over again?
Yeah. Have you had any more ideas since?
Yes, and I know them in my phone. And then I forget about them because I know I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. I have pages and pages of notes on my phone of random ideas. It just doesn't stop, does it? I think this is one thing that isn't talked about enough in entrepreneurialism as a whole, is that you don't just get ideas about your own company. You get ideas for like things that are just miles away. Like that's just the way that your brain is wired, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I had ideas for completely enterprise focused, and I had ideas for consumers, but very targeted niche of consumers. And then I'm realizing, this idea is nice. If in 5 years, 10 years, whatever, I'm exiting ZIM, it still works out, why not? But the market is so fast. You get so many new things every day out in the market. Now I'm going to focus on telco and eSIM, and then we'll see what comes next. I would love to have a restaurant or something related to food.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I would love to. I know it's really, really hard. I wouldn't be cooking, so making that clear. But I would love to have anything related to food.
Well, there's several things that you could do there, I'm sure, but probably a whole variety of things you could do there. But you mentioned about the VC thing. What is it that you think that you would do differently there? Like, what is it that's prompted that idea?
So I'm not sure how much legal power we would have to make things differently. So first we would need to research on that, because every good founder, everybody wants to change the world, but does the world want to be changed as well? What we want is to get more support to startups, act as more of an accelerator that invests since day one, which I know there's many, but it's just I've gone through a couple of accelerators that literally changed my founder journey, and I would love to be able to do the same for startups. I would also like to focus on female founded startups. there's still a huge gap to be filled there. But yeah, we would have to research more on how we would be different. But I would like to get involved in a startup, not just give money and forget about it.
Yeah. So to actually be the mother of unicorns.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You brought up the issue around female founders, or the lack thereof. You're not the first person on this show to bring that up, and I'm curious because the last person who brought it up a couple of episodes back, she mentioned some data, and I pointed out that I think the problem with a lot of this data is that, if you have a pool, if you're looking at, I think it was the data specifically around how many female founders get funded, and it's an incredibly low number. But I was just sort of curious. Now, I play devil's advocate with these sort of things just to be certain. I think it's probably very clearly accurate and wrong, but could it be that perhaps it's just an indication, a proper representation of actually how many women are in the startup industry as a whole, right? So if there are already a small amount and the majority is just straight white men, well then the vast majority we're going to see funded are straight white men because there's more of them, and maybe that's an accurate amount actually that should get funded, right? I don't know, but I'm curious, like what are your feelings on because then we got into a bit of a conversation about it. I'm just curious, what were your feelings on the whole issue? Like, do you feel like there is some sort of suppression going on, or is it the case that maybe there's just not enough women as a whole, even entering the scope of being a founder?
So definitely both.
Right.
There's not enough female founders. I think it's a circle. There's not enough female founders because there's not enough examples of successful female founders, and it goes like in a circle. When you go to a little girl, like, okay, tell me. Well, let's not say little, because I have little nephews and nieces, and they do not know about company founders. Somebody that's university, like, tell me your biggest motivational CEO, or like, tell me the name of the first CEO that comes to mind, or first founder. They'll go Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. Like, there's no female examples there, although there's been many females in leadership roles and founders that are well known in the market, but people do not know them. Since the people do not know them, so is the mirroring effect for sales. Like, when you do sales, you kind of tend to mirror the other person to make them feel more comfortable. If a female doesn't see another female doing a job that they would like to do, maybe they're not going to risk doing it. So it's a circle. We need to tell more females that, hey, you actually can do this, and it's a market that's open for all. Also tell females that you don't only need to do female focused products. You can also get into other industries, such as, I don't know, enterprise or telco, like we did. Telco is dominated by male, and we still entered it, and we are fine. We survived. We're okay. We're not traumatized. So we need to showcase that we can do more stuff that is related to a whole bunch of new technologies and innovations. And also, there is lower female representatives in VC and in investment. There's lower female angels, there's lower females in venture capitals. So, of course, if you normally you tend to relate to the person that you're talking to, because we are always going to be biased. Humans are biased, right? So a male will interact better with another male because they think there's a familiarity there. Since there's not enough females that work in investment, there's going to be less investment for female founders. So I think it's always a circle, and it goes back and forth. I hope numbers are going to improve, and I see more of my friends are girls that want to pursue entrepreneurship, and I'm really, really happy about that. And there's many more communities and funds that are being created for this, but there's still a huge gap to be filled, and we are heading towards the right direction, but we still need to improve many things.
Yeah, and it's an interesting topic as well, because of, like, I've heard the arguments on both sides of this, that there is a problem, that there isn't a problem, that that actually the reason why we don't see as many women in these positions, whether it's in VC or as founders or whatever, is because it just doesn't play into the biological or neurological makeup of women as much as it does into men, which is a fair argument that, you know, there's a certain amount of personality traits that are inherent in both genders, that you know that these roles play into, right? For the most part, not always. You're always going to get outliers. So then, of course, these kinds of roles are always going to be appealing more to men. But then the counter to that is, okay, well, then we need to do something about these roles to make sure that they do appeal more. And the environments, and you know, if a VC fund, you know, environment isn't, you know, appealing to women, then what's the problem there? So I see all sides of everything. That's just the way my brain operates, I guess. But it's just an interesting topic because for me, I always come back to, like what I said in this, you know, this episode I mentioned. I feel like it all starts in school.
Yeah,
you know, like when you look at the portion of men versus women going into, say, STEM fields, you know, versus things like healthcare and childcare and things like that. Well, you know, it's clear. And again, the reasons for that psychologists will give you and social scientists will give you is because, well, women are naturally inclined more to things that involve people and looking after people, whereas men are more inclined to looking at things that involve solving complex problems and, you know, figuring things out and building things and taking things apart. And these are our main personality differences. But so yeah, like, what could we do in schools maybe to change that? I think that's the key. What do you think we should maybe do in schools to maybe make these subjects a bit more appealing across the board? Because also the problem goes the other way too. Like, you know, a lot of people say in childcare and in schools that we need more men, right? So this isn't a one-sided issue in any industry. Like, there's a lot of industries that are dominated by women where we need more men too. So it's like, you know, what do you think we should maybe do to make these things a bit more even? Or should we? Or should we just leave nature to do its thing?
No, I think we should intervene. Of course we should. Educating kids, it's the most important thing because they are the future, right? When we see later generations that they already have biases and it's really hard to change those, for kids that's really easy. It's really easy to educate them on new things, and I think there's been big improvement there. But showcase that there is the many different options that they can be pursued. Like, also everything that's related to books that kids read at school. And the books that they read at school, they don't change those books, which is really frustrating because there's new books coming up and they should change those things. Because if you read a book that was written 50 years ago, that's going to say mommy will be a nurse, daddy will be an engineer, of course it comes on a bias for the kid's mind.
I think they're making changes to those things now. I'm hearing a lot about that, where they're trying to make these things a little bit more neutral and so on. Sometimes I think they're doing it a bit to the extreme in certain cases, but yeah,
they should change those things because we are changing as a society, and we should change also education with it, and also tell kids that there is other options rather than being a mathematician or a doctor or a nurse or X, like the traditional types of jobs, that you can be an entrepreneur, that you can build your own thing, that you can be a coder, you can, I don't know, you can even be a hacker, whatever, but that there is other options, because kids tend to discover that there's other options when it's too late.
Yeah.
And I would love for my niece and nephew to know that you can start being an entrepreneur. You can actually be whatever you want to be. You don't have to follow the rules. You don't even have to go to university. Like, that's something huge. Like, we were told that if you don't go to university, you're nothing. And that's not true. I know so many entrepreneurs that are super successful, super smart people that never went to university. And ask me what I have learned in 4 years at university. I have learned in 2 years and a half with ZIM 5,000 times more than what I learned at university and masters, which I paid one kidney to go to.
But to counter that slightly, I went back to education later in life because I dropped out of school. I was a terrible student. I got kicked out of school, and I wasn't. But I think that thinking back to that now, it's because I was bored, right?
Yeah.
I didn't feel challenged, and so I just fucked around. And then I went back to education and went back to university to do my degree later in life, and in fact did a lot of courses of all kinds. In fact, right now is the longest period of my adult life I haven't had something I was doing on the side educationally. I redid my GCSEs, I went to university, I did all of that, all home learning stuff. And one thing that I recognize that I personally believe is really important from the further education experience, so like college and university, is that it teaches you how to learn, right?
That's right.
So although the topic that you're learning may not be particularly useful, like maybe you go and you learn, I don't know, psychology and you end up being an engineer or whatever, the important thing about it was critical thinking. And I think that was the really important part, that, you know, perhaps you didn't need 4 years and £22,000 worth of debt to learn, but there's something in that which I think was really important. This ability to dissect, you know, a body of text, to write an essay, to, you know, all of these skills that actually are really important to learn a topic, you then apply to life.
Yes.
And I think that skill was far more important than any of the knowledge actually that I learned, because in actuality, the business degree that I did, I had already done most of the stuff that I was being taught, so that wasn't it. But the you know, the Harvard standard for writing an essay and all this sort of stuff, that was actually super useful. How to do the research, how to think through a problem, how to dissect it. So for that, I would probably recommend to my children go to university, but I would hope by that point there might be some other alternative.
I hope so too, because university now, I did a course of politics with economics, so you can imagine how traditional and everything by the book was. I would love to see courses that are different. I don't know, something about entrepreneurship, and I've seen that in other people that I've met. I had this colleague at my accelerator that did an entrepreneurship university course, and the way he was prepared compared to us, it was crazy. So I hope that it will change and it will adapt more.
I'm seeing a lot more people do executive MBAs now.
Yes,
which is really good. The only problem is they're very expensive, but like they're really good. But of course, the idea of those is that you're already in an executive role and then you do them. I think they would be great to see something similar to that. Like, but on a lower entry level where you can do it part-time, because that's the big perk of the EMBA, is that you do them at weekends, basically. And your business can also pay for part or all of it too. Like something like that would be really fucking awesome to see, like, especially for young people. You know, because of one thing that I've noticed over the years working with startups too, is that startups breed more founders. So the vast majority of startups you see have usually been founded by people who are, you know, entry-level coders or, you know, salespeople or whatever at a startup, and then they go off and create their own. So it's like, you know, it'd be great to see some organization and some educational, you know, institutions come together to recognize that actually each startup is an incubator for more startups, and to foster these people and train them. Not only would that be beneficial to the startup themselves, because their staff is getting upskilled in the art of everything to do with business and leadership and all that, but then also you're preparing the next generation, you know. So maybe there's an answer there. I don't know.
100%.
That's what you can do. That's what you can do when you exit.
But there you go, another startup idea.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This is what we do. Fucking hell. I have to write that one down as well. Jesus.
You should. It's a great idea. And I think it would change many, many things if startups and educational institutions would work together.
But I have thought about that a lot, because I remember working years ago when I worked with the startup Booksy, and I was working with barbershops, right, which is, you know, the very first customers that Booksy was serving, you know, 10 years ago, whenever it was now. And I remember encountering there was a big problem with barbers, and this is an odd comparison, but bear with me. There was a big problem within barbershops and hair salons and stuff of people deciding to leave and quit and start their own barbershop, right? And it would piss off the barber. They were like, they've just left me, and now I need to hire someone else, and they've opened a shop down the road. They're now my competition. Fuck them. And there would be these big feuds between people, like almost over territory, like gangs and stuff, right? And then one day I meet a guy who's a bit of an influencer in the world of barbering. He's quite, you know, a bit of a barber rock star, you know, a lot of followers online, goes to shows and all that. And his approach was entirely different. He trained everyone in his shop on the assumption that they would one day want to open their own shop. And so from the very beginning, that's how he trained them. He wouldn't just train them to be great at cutting hair. He would train them on the business, the economics, the infrastructure, everything about it. And he was more than happy to train people to a standard. And then if they got to a point where they could afford, you know, he would pay them well as well. So if he could, get them to a point where they could open their own shop, then either they could open another shop for him, or they could open their own. He didn't mind. He was like, be successful. That's all I care about. And as long as you're here, and as long as you're here and you do a good job, fine. And I'm like, that's a really good model.
That's really smart.
Right? Yeah, like that's a really good model. Imagine if we did that in startups with everyone.
Yeah.
Like that's great. So don't just train a future leader, train a future business owner.
Exactly.
Suddenly that reframes everything and the way that we approach everything. Now we're looking at the whole ecosystem. We're not just looking at ourselves. And I wonder if there's something to that could be replicated in what we do.
That would be amazing. That sounds ideal.
Yeah, a lot of work though.
A lot of work and a lot of bureaucracy with the educational institutions.
Yeah. Anyway, look, we're coming towards the end. So like I alluded to earlier, there is a little bit of a section I do at the end of it, which is to pick your brain on what you would say would maybe be some of your tips, just to like leave everyone who's listening with some ideas, maybe some key takeaways from you, things that you've learned. You've already given one, but maybe there's some more that you've thought about since. What would you say? Take it away. The mic is yours. What would you want to parting words of wisdom?
Surround yourself with people that have the same mindset as you, business-wise. I mean, have a great team, build that great team, take the time to build that great team, because many people don't actually take the time because they're too focused on other stuff. The team is the most important thing at the beginning of the journey. Have a good co-founder, be able to trust them. I think that's really, really important. As we said, humor, take things with a pinch of salt. You're going to receive like 100,000 advices from everybody around you.
I'm guilty of that too.
No, it's good. Take them, but internalize them and use what's useful for your business. You know your business better than anybody else. Don't be scared of investors. Investors should be scared of you and how passionate you are and how ambitious you are. Make your investors are actually your friends. I mean, they gave you money for you to pursue your idea and your dreams. So you should be able to talk to them on one-on-one, not be afraid of what they're going to say, because the money's already there. Now they need to support you. And I see a lot of startups that are like, I'm so afraid, I'm going to an investor meeting. No, be relaxed. You need to definitely tell your investor what's going on. Be honest, be transparent, but don't be afraid of them. Because otherwise, this is not a good, it's really, really toxic.
Yeah, so it's an imbalance of power in an interaction otherwise, yeah.
Exactly. Trust your team, delegate. I was used to do everything myself, and once we started having a team, it was really hard to delegate, but it's really, really important because you cannot do everything. And I think that's really important lesson. Don't do everything. It's impossible. You're not going to be good at everything. I'm not good at marketing. I know this. I'm really shit at color picking. Somebody or brand strategist at some point, she was like, what do you prefer, this or this? And I said completely the opposite from everybody else in the team. And of course, they didn't go with my thoughts because it was bullshit. So you know what you're good at. Exploit that. You as a manager, I think manager doesn't mean you have to control people. What you have to do is identify their skills and exploit those skills. So if your skill is not on marketing, that's okay. You have a team that will be doing that for you. And it doesn't mean you're better or worse than them. It's just that it's not your thing. So don't do everything, because if you do everything, the company is going to go to shit because you're not going to be good at everything.
Yeah, exactly. If you try and do everything, you'll do everything badly. Focus on doing some things really, really well. Yeah, good advice.
I designed our first website. That was definitely not a good idea.
But it's what you needed at the time, right?
Exactly. And then when I got somebody actually designing our website, I realized that I'm not good at this. I'm not good at design.
Yeah, I designed our first website, for example, the one that's live now for Observic. That's my design. I've got a bit of a background in design, but still I know. I know, so it's okay, but I know it's not going to be the one we're using forever, right? It's like we'll get some professionals in at some point.
Which is great, because that's why you surround yourself with people that know what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And just briefly, one last question before I let you go. You mentioned about the importance of finding a really good co-founder. What about those people out there that are listening that are kind of very, very early on in their journey? They're solo, they've got the idea, they're maybe just building it out. There's always this question I get asked, should I find a co-founder? Because the advice out there seems to always be get a co-founder. Do you think that's always the case?
No. Depends on what you're building and your personality as well. Can you work with somebody else? Who can you work with? What personality do they need to have to complement you? Because you cannot be working towards the same thing. If you get somebody that's very similar to you, you might clash on so many things. If you get somebody that's too different, you might not be able to take decisions. You need somebody that's complementary. And if you are a person that doesn't work well in a duo or a team, you should think about it before getting a co-founder. I know so many great founders that they're solo founders. It's not about you don't have to get a co-founder to please your investors. That's definitely not what should happen, because okay, you please your investors, but maybe you doomed your business forever.
Yeah, you can still manage it with just some senior members of staff later down the road, maybe. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. There's not always the need of a co-founder. Our business has so many different verticals that if I wouldn't have a co-founder, I would just work 24/7, and that's not possible, because I cannot concentrate on supplier, on the B2C supplier, and the B2B supplier, and all of those things. We need operations to be handled by my co-founder, and I need to handle the financials. Yeah.
Good advice. Thank you so much. And look, thank you for joining me. We'll wrap it up now. As always happens. Yeah, my pleasure. And what always happens with these conversations is that the 2 hours flies by.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is interesting. I always get worried, when I first book them, because of busy individuals, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to take 2 hours of your time. I know, but
that's great. I really enjoy this, and also I'm going to have lunch because I haven't had lunch today yet.
Yeah, me too. I need to do the same thing. That's the story of a sort of like I said, we forget to eat sometimes, right?
Exactly, we do.
It's our favorite thing to do, and we forget to do it. But yeah, I need to eat too. So, but yeah, look, it's so lovely seeing you again, and we'll catch up again soon, I'm sure. Whether it's in person at one of these events coming up or online again, and keep up the amazing work. It's really exciting, and you've got a cheerleader as always.
Amazing.
So
thank you so much, Greg, for your time, and I'll definitely see you in the next events.
Definitely. All right, enjoy your lunch.
Thank you. You too. Have a good one.
And enjoy your trip to Indonesia soon.
Thank you. I'm looking forward. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching and/or listening. Please like, subscribe, and join the conversation in the comments below.